Welcome back to the Big John Radio Show, episode number 4. I got a few more things I'm going to talk at you about, and I guess at some point I wrote them down and thought they were important. I don't know, maybe they are, maybe they're not. Who knows? I guess we'll find out. I've actually had quite a lot of fun making these radio shows so far. It's kind of a new thing for me. Even though me and Dad have been doing the videos for a very long time, and I know a lot about it. It's just actually me being the person who's doing the talking or the standing in front of the camera. That part is very new to me, even though I know a lot about how it's supposed to be done. But when it actually comes to executing it, it's different. It's very different. I mean, if you think about it, like right now, it's kind of a weird thing. Here I am by myself in a room in my house talking to this machine with a blue light on it, and that machine is going to interpret what I'm saying, and it's going to put it onto my computer, and then later I'm going to hook my computer up to this cable or onto this wireless connection that's going to connect it to a bunch of other machines all around the world, which are connected somehow. And then people are going to be able to get on their machines all around the world and listen to it through YouTube. It's pretty weird. It's a pretty weird thing when you think about it. I think about that a lot too when over the years when me and Dad would be out in the middle of the woods making a video, nobody but the birds and the two of us and the camera hearing what we're doing. But then we put it up on the internet and people tend to watch it. And it's been weird. It's been really strange when I actually step back and think about it. It's an unusual thing. But I'm really glad that I have this opportunity to be able to do this, and that you guys seem to be somewhat, at least even moderately interested. So, that's cool. I've learned a lot from you guys over the years. You guys always talk about how much you learn from us, but one thing maybe we haven't said much of is how much we learn from you guys. I mean, so many different perspectives from all around the world, and different levels of knowledge and experience. And we read those comments. We don't always reply to them, but we read them. And obviously you have to take, every comment I read, I don't take it as truth, but you can tell sometimes when somebody knows what they're talking about, and in private messages and different things. And just over the 6 years or so, we've learned a lot from you guys, and I appreciate that. It's been great. And some of you guys might have heard me mention it briefly in the 1000th video, but one thing that I love to hear is when I find out that someone, especially in the mainstream media, is pro-gun or even pro-freedom at all, but especially pro-gun, because there's not that many of them. There's really only a handful, at least that we know about. There's probably others that don't speak out about it because they're afraid of being exiled from Hollywood or something like that. But you know how it goes. Whenever something happens in the news or anything, whenever there's a big push, it seems like to try to limit our gun rights. There's always these celebrities just lined up, just waiting to support the cause of taking away our guns, and that's just really frustrating. And really, the interesting thing about that is too, what that shows you is that people tend to trust celebrities more than politicians, and especially not just celebrities. Usually, actors. Usually, it's actors and actresses that are the ones that come out against our gun rights in these ads or different appearances. So these people are literally trained liars. Literally, that's what they do for a living. They lie to you on camera. That's what they do. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. Obviously, acting is an amazing ability, the people that can do it. But that's what it is. They're pretending to be something else. So people trust what they say more than even politicians do. What does that tell you? The fact that the American people, or I don't know, I'm sure this tactic is used all around the world, tend to trust trained professional liars more than they do a politician. That's interesting. And I'll just leave it at that. That's very interesting. But like I said, it's just really frustrating when those celebrities come out against our gun rights. But Again, it's great whenever there are some that do support our rights. That's just amazing. And recently, like I was talking about in the thousands video, I went to a comedy show, and it was a comedian that I've liked for the past couple of years. His name is Duncan Trussell. He's got a podcast, and I think it's called the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, something like that. He's kind of out there, but I've liked his stand up, and he came to Nashville and went to see him, and he's not the kind of guy that I expected to be pro gun at all. Definitely not one of those, and but I got to meet him after the show and talked with him a little bit, and the issue of guns came up somehow. I can't remember what it was. I said something. He had a bit. Said something about one of the bits that he did or something, and he mentioned that he loved guns. He's like, oh, I love guns, man. He's like, I have a shotgun for home defense, and he was telling me some story about he was at a range because he lives in LA. But some story he was at a range out there, and some guy he was like, he had a AR-15. Did I say that right? And I was like, yeah, yeah. And he was telling me like how cool it was and stuff. It really surprised me. But there's others like that. So don't be too quick to judge just because they seem like a lot of their thinking is a certain way. Maybe that seems like it's this certain they adhere to this certain label to you. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be against their gun rights. And then also on the flip side of that, because they are for gun rights, I think we should applaud those people in some way. I mean, if you don't like what they're saying, I mean, you don't have to support them, of course, but I think at least we should be somewhat appreciative of those people, even though maybe everything else they say we totally disagree with. Like I can't remember who said it, but the whole thing about the Second Amendment is the thing that ensures the rest of them, and I tend to kind of agree with that to an extent. So I think that's important, and those people should be appreciated and recognized, regardless of what their other beliefs are, because it's important. I mean, just face it, it's important for us to have guns, and the more people on our side, the better. And the other stuff, everyone's going to disagree within the gun community, outside of the gun community. People are going to disagree on a lot of things, but we need our guns. I mean, there's just no way around it, and that's just important. But so that's cool. Like I said, when mainstream media tends to favor our gun rights, even though it is rare. And one thing that's interesting is ever since we started this whole project, that I've really had my ear to the ground about, I guess, is how new media is changing and evolving, and how people are moving away from old media over to new media. And I started to kind of notice the trend back when I was in college still, back in I guess 2008, 2009, sometime around in there. I discovered some of these YouTube channels that actually had like a news desk, and they were reporting news. But yet, the thing that struck me as odd about it was that they were talking normal. They were just talking like I am right now, but they were reporting the news. I mean, it was like it seemed insane almost at the time. And the more I watched it, I was thinking, yeah, why don't they do it like this? How is the news delivered to me better when someone can speak in that perfect, newsman, newswoman cadence? I'm not even going to attempt to try it, but it's I don't get it. You watch the local news and they're talking to you like a just weird robot. It's like, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand it. And at the time, I'd never seen anyone do that, so it seemed really odd. And now, I love that. I love being able to watch, getting my news from alternative media, as they call it, or new media, and it's just people, just regular people that are informed and have done research and done their homework. You hope at least, and they're just telling you what they think. I mean, that's just great. I think that's how it should be. Honestly, I really don't even watch mainstream media anymore. I just they try to tell you how to think too much. I like to think for myself. That's just how I've always been. But I'm really noticing very strong trend. I've had lots of people tell me that they don't even watch TV anymore. They get everything on the internet, and they like something that's more real and raw, authentic. They're tired of the fakery on TV, and I really think that's where things are heading, and it's great. I absolutely love it. I think that it has a lot to do with how we kept our gun rights after 2012. It's the reason that we can still walk into a gun shop and buy an AR-15 or an AK. I think that new media has a lot to do with that. Now, of course, it was just the internet in general had a lot to do with all the with the gun community getting so riled up and together and connected. It just even Facebook had a big impact on that, whether they like it or not. But I definitely think that new media, in the sense of people who are reporting the news and trying to provide information to people that maybe you can't get on the mainstream, or maybe it's the same information but without the part where they try to convince you of how you should feel about it. I feel like that's just really helped. That's really helped with our gun rights a lot. And one thing too, that I hear a lot of people talk about the internet. Oh, if you heard it on the internet, it can't be true. Well, I mean, anything you hear could not be true, or it could be true. Obviously, that's pretty obvious. But here's the thing about the internet. Yeah, of course, anybody can post anything on the internet. That is true. So that means that there's a lot of things on the internet that just aren't true. That is a very true statement. But here's the thing that's different about the internet. There's no gatekeepers. There's no one to stop you from posting something on the internet. And the internet is also really difficult to censor. If you wanted to stop people from putting their opinions on the internet, you could not do that in a sneaky way. It would be obvious, because if I had an opinion and I went and I said, you know what, I'm going to start a blog tomorrow. And I went and started that blog, and all of a sudden it got taken down. And then I went to create another one, and it got taken down. That would be pretty obvious. I would notice that. And a lot of other people would notice that too. And the word would get out that that was happening. So the cool thing about the internet is, while yes, a lot of it probably is not true, a lot of the things the information that you can find on the internet, if it is true, it's going to be on the internet. Nothing's going to stop it. I'm not saying that the mainstream media isn't also true. I'm just saying that if there is information out there that is factual, nothing is going to stop it from being put on the internet. So what I would say to those people that don't believe anything on the internet, I would say that's good. Don't just believe anything on the internet, or really anything you hear in general, but know that it's all on there. The internet is not some special weird place. The internet is basically just it. Eventually people will probably even stop calling it the internet. It'll just be, I don't know what they'll call it. I don't have any ideas, but it's almost like the unleaded gas thing. I mean, it's just kind of, it just is. That's just it. That's where everything is. I mean, you're connected to everything. There won't be any TV anymore and all that kind of stuff. Which brings me to another point that I wanted to make, is one thing I've noticed that's happening with the trend of new media, old media, is that old media, these big TV networks are starting to finally recognize new media, and they're getting involved in it, and they're trying to pass themselves off as new media, but they're not. They're actually owned by the same companies that own these big old, long-standing TV networks. So you got to watch out for that. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, they have some good stuff out there, but just be aware of it. Be aware that you may think that you're getting, some average Joe who started a website in his basement and is putting his opinions out there, but really it's, Fox or ABC or NBC or something like that. So just be aware of that, that's happening. And another thing too is, I think that there's some new media that is trying really hard to be recognized, in the same way that old media is recognized. And I would encourage people, if you're involved in new media, if you have your own blog or whatever it is, I would encourage you to remember that there's a reason why people are moving from TV to the internet. So don't try to be like something that's dying off. It would be like if I started a magazine company. That wouldn't be not gun magazines, of course. Well, not the kind of magazines that you put into a gun. The kind of magazines that you read that are made of paper. It wouldn't be very smart to start a company making those things necessarily, because they're dying off. I mean, who really reads magazines anymore? I mean, occasionally I'll pick one up, but they're so expensive. It's like $10 for a bunch of information that I could find on the internet, in a couple minutes. So there's just not a lot of need for them anymore. But I get off track. But basically, if you're involved in new media, embrace it. Embrace what it is. Embrace the fact that people like what you're doing largely because it is different from what's on TV. So don't try too hard to imitate the old stuff. Be new, embrace it. Have your own concept, have your own ideas. Do it your own way, and also do it how you do. Create a product that you would want. That's important. I feel like there's a big problem with that in entertainment. Is people look at it like it's a business. Like they're like, if I do this and do that, and maybe if I add this thing, then more people will watch it and I'll make more money. No, don't worry about that. That doesn't matter. If you're worried about that, you're involved in that for the wrong reasons. You need to, if you're a musician, if you are doing like what I'm doing, whatever it is, if you're an artist, create the type of work that you would enjoy. If you're making music, make the kind of music that you would want to listen to. Don't make some music that you think is going to appeal to some certain demographic and is going to make you a lot of money. Okay, if money's all you want, then maybe you'll get it doing that. But to me, that's just, you don't take any of that with you. That to me, that's just, you're just wasting your own time doing that. Create what you would like to see. And if people like it, great. Keep it coming. If they don't, they don't. Just, be authentic. Put your work out there that like you would want to see. I feel like that's important. And some of the greatest music, art, all that stuff, anything creative like that has come from that. People who don't really care what other people think in the sense of letting it affect their work. They make the kind of work, they make the kind of music or art or whatever it is that they would want to see or listen to. And I think people really appreciate that, whether they realize it or not. And that's what I do. When it comes to, and that's what me and Dad do when it comes to making the videos. That's what we've always done. We make videos that we would want to see, that we would find interesting. So, and people so far like it. Okay. So we kept doing them. Simple as that. And, that's how I try to do everything. That's how I try to do everything in my life. And also don't let negative comments bother you. That's another thing. There's always going to be those people out there that they just want to see the world burn on varying levels. So there's going to be people out there who are going to try to tear you down or tell you whatever, insults, all these kinds of things. People who have real stuff to say, don't just throw around insults like that. They will tell you and explain to you articulately why they think the way that they do, if it's really something important that you need to hear. So whenever you see people just throwing out insults and shock value type things, you might as well just ignore it. Just let it go right. Just let it fly right on by, because it doesn't even matter. So yeah, don't let those kind of things get to you at all. And it reminds me of something else I was going to talk about is all these arguments that come up on especially gun videos. Of course any YouTube videos has lots of serious arguments usually on them. if it's controversial at all. But one thing that I see the most common is caliber arguments. People talking about, 9 is too weak, or a 380 is a waste of your time, or 45 will knock anybody down, and all these kinds of things. Here's the thing to remember. There's two sides to everything. When it comes to caliber arguments, I'll be honest, sometimes those are fun to have. We gun people. We like to debate different aspects of the hobby. We like to argue about it. We like to pay attention to details and try to argue with our other gun friends that these certain details are better than those other details, or that you're worried about this thing that doesn't matter, and all these different things. We like to debate all those different types of issues that everybody talks about. American guns versus foreign guns, AKs versus ARs, 9 versus 40, or 40 versus 45, or 9.45, and long barrels versus short barrels, handguns, rifles, revolvers, automatics, all those different things. And those are fun. Those are fun to argue about. Those are a lot of fun to argue about. But now there's no reason to bring it past that level of just fun to where you're getting so upset about it to where you're throwing out hurtful things to each other and making enemies. Even if it is just some random person on the internet, there's no reason to just spread hate throughout the internet over nothing. Like I said, those are fun to argue about. But here's the thing: when it really comes down to it, those type of arguments, when it comes to the stuff that really matters, are really not that productive at all. I really don't feel that they are, because for the most part, if you know what you're doing, most reasonable calibers, if you're reasonable about the caliber that you choose for the situation, you're probably going to be okay. I don't hunt, but I have heard people that I've got lots of friends that do, and I've heard of every caliber you can imagine taking down a deer. But people still argue about 30-30 or 223 or 308, all this kind of stuff. They will all do the job pretty close. I mean, they all work for the most part. When it comes to handguns, basically all pistol calibers are underpowered. And of course, this is nothing new to most of you, but the whole thing about knockdown power with a pistol, if you're shooting a pistol that has knockdown power, then it's going to knock you down also. That's the thing. That's the thing that people forget. The impact that you feel on your hand from the recoil is the same as the impact that they're going to feel when they get hit by it. It's going to be a little different because you're feeling all of it through the gun, and when a bullet kind of knifes through, it doesn't, it's a little different, but it's not going to knock someone down. Now they might jump back or something like that. Something like that could happen maybe, but that could happen with any caliber. There's no caliber that's just something that's just going to knock you down, especially a pistol. So all these arguments about the different calibers and the effectiveness of them, really it's a bunch of people who have theories and really don't have a clue. And I don't either, honestly. But I do know that it's such an infinitesimal detail that it's not so important to where it's worth just, spouting all this hate at each other, and just, even making ghost enemies on the internet is not even worth that, So try to keep, if you can get engaged in one of these arguments, try to rise above it and don't get sucked into these arguments with these people that's all they do. They get some thrill out of arguing about stuff like that. And then of course not on the internet, you have the know-it-alls that they just know everything. I mean, I've had people tell me just insane things about guns. I had this one guy tell me that he could throw a knife further than a 1911 was accurate to shoot at. I mean, just insane things. And of course he didn't want to hear it when I told him that in a very nice way that just wasn't true, and that I've shot 1911s accurately at much farther ranges than I feel like he could have thrown a knife. That's for sure. I don't know. I mean, I've heard some crazy things, and a lot of times you hear the craziest things from the people who are the most sure about them too, that they're true. That's what's funny. It's not always just people who just don't really know anything about guns. Well, I mean, it is people who don't know anything about guns, but it's not people who are just kind of new and maybe a little bit ignorant to certain things about guns, and they just say something kind of crazy, but when you correct them, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. No, usually when people say really crazy stuff, usually there are those know-it-all types that they've got their ego wrapped up in guns, and their main drive is to know more than you about guns, or at least to make you feel like they do. And I just don't understand how these people think they can get away with that. That's just crazy to me. And as a lot of you may have noticed, that every second on this radio show, we don't necessarily talk about guns. And part of the reason for that is not only because I have a lot of other interests. Of course, all gun people have lots of other interests. But I just really wanted to do something a little different on these radio shows that I'm doing on Hickok 45 and Son channel, because everything we do is strictly guns, which is what we should be doing, honestly. But I kind of wanted to, have the freedom to talk about some other things and get into some other issues, and most of them will relate to guns in some way. But there'll be some things that won't. That'll just be something I thought was interesting or fun to do. I don't plan to get into any kind of politics or anything like that, other than Second Amendment gun issues, because I feel like anyone listening to this should be on the same page when it comes to that. But we all have different opinions about what we think is going on in the country politically, and what should be going on, and all that kind of thing. And I don't want to offend anybody. I think that we shouldn't be so aggressive about our political differences. I think we should just share ideas, and just talk about, and be able to talk sensibly about our different viewpoints on different things. So I think political discussions are good, but that's not something I'm going to get into on these radio shows, because they get really controversial and they offend people, and people get upset, and you can't appeal to everyone if you get into political things. And I don't want to do that. I like to get into more fundamental things that I find interesting, instead of just kind of surface level political kind of things. And speaking of that, as you guys may remember, on the last radio show that I did by myself without a guest, I did an album recommendation. Speaking of non-gun related things, I collect vinyl records. I got into it probably, I don't know, about a year ago, something like that. I was just happened to be in Great Escape. Oh yeah, I think I told that story, about how I bought the Dark Side of the Moon and all that. And so yeah, I've just enjoyed that. It's just kind of neat. I kind of, that was something that I grew up in that time period where I grew up really after vinyl was really being used much. I was born in '88. But I did grow up in a time period where people still bought albums. They bought CDs. They actually bought like the whole album and listened to it. And as I was getting a little bit older and kind of into my teenage years, that was sort of starting to go away, as people were downloading music on the computer, and then the iPods came out and stuff like that. And I always kind of resisted that, because I always liked the idea of just buying a full album instead of just the hit song that I heard on the radio, because in most of my experiences, there'd be some song that I would know about, whatever it is, and I'd buy the album that song was on for that specific song. And then once I got the album and listened to it, I find, wow, okay, I still love that song, but there's songs on here that I almost like even better, or at least as good, and I hate the idea of missing out on that. And plus you have like the album art and everything. It's a cool experience. You buy an album, and it's like, here is this musician's work for this album for this period of time. This is what they were thinking and feeling when they recorded this album. And I think that's just a neat thing that's kind of lost in music these days. So that's part of why I got into collecting vinyl, because it's that, because that's what's so neat. And they're big, and you got the pictures and all the different art and stuff that's in them. And like that, the album of the show last time was that Jethro Tull album, Stand Up. I mean, it's just insane. You open that album, and it's like this weird like pop-up thing and stuff like that. I mean, we don't get that anymore. unless you get these old albums. And plus, they're kind of collectible too, so that's cool. They only go up in value, so I don't feel bad spending too much money on them. But long story short, the album of the show is going to be a Styx album, which I've always liked Styx quite a bit. I'm not going to say that they're necessarily my favorite band, but I like them a lot. But I can say that this album is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite albums, I've decided. But it's The Grand Illusion by Styx. It's the album that's got Sail Away on it, which is a great song, but it's actually not even anywhere near my favorite song on that album. But that album is just amazing, just start to finish. Again, I challenge you, get that album, get it on YouTube, buy it, borrow it, steal it. Don't steal it, that was a joke. But get it somehow and just sit down. One thing people don't do enough, it seems like to me at least, is they don't just listen to music anymore. They just hear it as they're driving to work or in passing. They don't just sit down and just soak it up. Do that. Get that album, listen to it, just listen, start to finish, and just soak it up. It may not be your taste. You don't like it. People like different kinds of music. There's a lot of music that you probably like that I wouldn't like. But if you like that kind of music, if you like classic rock, if you think if you like Styx a little bit, you think you might like it, I challenge you to get that album. Like I said, just sit down, just listen to it, start to finish, and just soak it up. It's great. It's one of my favorites. It's a really good album. I was listening to it earlier today, actually. Just a great album. But anyways, like I said, I like to just talk about some some interesting things like that. Maybe that's not interesting to you, but that's the kind of thing that's the kind of conversations that I like to have. Just about things that you don't always hear. It seems like people always want to talk about the weather or and I like sports is great, or I want to talk about the game last night, and all these kinds of things, and we miss out on some of the really just interesting things about our society and how it works and how people behave and just the nature of being here and everything. There's just a lot of interesting things out there that I feel like people miss out on that don't get talked about, and especially when it comes to guns. There's a lot of issues within the gun community. It's a very I'm not gonna say delicate, but it's complex is better, for sure, is a better word. It's a very complex kind of situation where we all love these things, that one is like a game to us to go out and enjoy, like a sport, a hobby. But two is something that can protect our life. It can extend our lifespan, possibly the same way that a fire extinguisher would. If you woke up in your house and it was on fire and you had it close and you were able to grab it and use it to navigate your way out of the house. It's just an inanimate object, but it's much more than that. It can save your life. That's huge. So it's this really weird. And then the fact that people think we shouldn't have it. They think we shouldn't have certain ones because they think maybe it's dangerous to other people that we have that. And there's this whole culture and industry and community around it, and it's at risk constantly. I can't think of many other things like that where people just enjoy a hobby and collect and all these different things, and they're always talking about it and hanging out and all this kind of stuff. But then there's these people that are constantly trying to stop them from doing it. I mean there are some things like that for sure, but there aren't a lot. And it's just been neat to be able to be a part of it actively in the way that I am, and and like what me and Dad have been doing, and also how I've been getting my ideas out there more directly on the Hickok 45 and Son channel. That's been interesting so far, and I still have a ways to go. I don't know how many videos have I done so far. I guess regular videos like 10 or something, whatever regular is, and It at first the first few I was definitely really nervous because it's just even though I had no reason to be nervous, it still is just strange. Like I said earlier in the show, standing in front of a camera or being on the radio, it's a little odd at first, but I'm starting to get used to it. I'm starting to be a little bit more comfortable with it. I'm gonna, but I still get nervous. I'm gonna say some things that I don't necessarily mean to say. Sometimes I'm gonna misspeak. I'm gonna get confused about what I'm saying at times. But you know, I'm gonna get the main point I was trying to get out there for the most part. And the way that me and Dad prefer to do the videos in our unedited style, there's gonna be mistakes. There just are. There's gonna be a mistake. I'm gonna make mistakes on the camera when I'm filming. It happens all the time. At least every video, there's probably some mistake. Sometimes there's several. It just happens. If you're filming for like 30 minutes straight, you can't always have the best shot, or you might, accidentally, show the wrong thing, show the wrong target, or you might bump the camera and it'll be a little jiggle or something like that. It's just gonna happen. But I think that it's worth it. I think it's worth it to just to have that nice steady flow, and I just really like doing it that way. And like we talked about in the 1000th video, I love that you guys actually like it too for the most part. I'm sure some of you don't, but it's that's how I like to do it. I just like doing it raw and real like that. And because of that, there's going to be mistakes. And right now, I've definitely been making mistakes, of course, and I always will, but I've been making a lot more than hopefully I will in the future. Like saying too much, and of course people keep giving me a hard time about that on the Glock 19 video. Most of them have probably never been in front of a camera before. And it's funny because after that, I remember thinking, I gotta cut the nose down, and I gotta try to not do that so much. And then I realized after that, I was like, well, I say a lot anyways, just in regular life, so I'm gonna cut them down the best I can, but I'm still gonna be myself. I'm trying to be as authentic as I can. No one can be 100% authentic when they're being recorded, because they know they're being recorded. So it just kind of changes how you talk. But at least I'm trying. I'm trying my best to just be who I am, and I think 99%. That's how I come across. Probably, if you met me and knew me, you'd probably say, yeah, that's about right. And that's what I'm trying to do. And in doing that, there's going to be mistakes. I'm going to say things that are awkward. I'm going to not word things correctly. I'm going to forget things. I'm going to talk in circles, like I've done throughout this radio show. But it'll get better over time if you guys stick with me, and if you find the things I'm saying interesting at all, then it'll get better for sure. And one last thing I wanted to talk about very briefly. I may do a video on this, maybe not. I don't know. Other people have done it, but a question that we get asked all the time is, what do I need to know to start a YouTube channel? What do I need to know? What should I do? And I've seen a lot of videos on this topic, and I think that my views on it might be a little bit more, a little different maybe. They covered a lot of the basics. Basically, content, of course, is most important. And then, they talk about production values, which that depends on what type of content you have. Certain types of content, production values could almost be equally as important as your content. But with other types of content like ours, for example, the production values really just need to be good enough, at least in my opinion. They need to be good enough to get the content across. That's the main thing. As long as the content gets across, then really, if they're a lot better, it really doesn't make a difference. Which is why we don't spend a lot of money. Our camera costs like $1,000, which is nothing for. I mean, it's not even a professional camera at all. It's just a regular, just like something you would go and buy at Best Buy to film your brother's wedding with. I mean, it's just a regular old camera. Now I do want to improve my production values on the radio show, but that's gonna it'll be a little time before I make that happen. But they'll get better gradually. But anyway, so yeah, production values, it's important depending on your content. But there's some other little things that I think don't necessarily serve you very well if you have a YouTube channel. And what made me think of it is because I was almost getting into that territory earlier. What I was saying is stop validating yourself. That's a tendency. Everyone has that tendency to do that. I do it. Everybody does it. But you got to be aware of it and try not to do it, especially if you're on YouTube. What I mean by validate yourself is basically validate your reason for having a YouTube channel. Don't spend all your time when you should be just putting out good, interesting content, trying to explain why you say certain things or why you're doing certain things and all this different stuff. Just do it, and people will just take it for what it is. You know, don't waste all your time trying to tell people what you're about to do or what what you are or what you're about, or oh yeah, you come here to this channel and you're gonna see this, or I'm like this or that, or yeah, don't waste your time with that. A little bit of that, people want to know, kind of where you're coming from, but if you really truly have good content, then you shouldn't need to validate it, even though that tends to be a tendency that we all have. Another thing too that's almost similar to that in a way is don't beg people to watch your videos. I think that I don't know, it turns me off. At least if I'm watching a YouTube channel and I feel like they're begging me to like my video, share my video, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I mean, maybe from a marketing standpoint, maybe it's beneficial. I don't know, but you'll never see me do that. You'll never see that definitely from us, just because I feel like it's I don't know, it comes across a little needy, to be honest. I don't know, it's a little strange, but so yeah, those are two things. And but mainly, just if you're trying to start a YouTube channel or anything like this, just decide, okay, first of all, decide what you're going to do. What is it? What kind of content do you want to put out there? And then maybe look and see what's already being done in that realm, and then try to think, okay, what can I do that's different? Because if you try to do something that's already being done on a really high level, then, like for example, if you decided you wanted to start a YouTube channel busting myths, that would be kind of hard, because already one of the most popular shows, Mythbusters, is it's big budget TV, unlimited funds. I mean, not unlimited, but it's a big budget TV show. That's going to be pretty hard to compete with. Now, if you really have your act together and you think that you can be better than Mythbusters, then by all means go for it, for sure. Because honestly, I would love to see a new media version of that show. That would be great. But just be aware that if you're going to be doing something the same as something, and mainly I'm talking about old media, if you're going to do this the same as something that's on TV that's already being done at a really high level with a really big budget and is very well established, you're going to have a rough road ahead of you. You're going to have the best luck if you try to do something new that is a little bit different, that maybe hasn't been done in the same way that you're planning on doing it. So basically, do something that's unique, provide good content, make sure your production values match the type of content that you have. Don't be too needy. Just make the type of videos that you would like to see, and don't keep validating yourself. Just be confident in yourself, but not overconfident where you're going to come across like some kind of a guy with an inflated ego, commando type or something like that. But trust yourself, put out good content, and you'll be fine. That's all you can do. If nobody watches it, nobody watches it. But that's That's the way to go in my opinion. I mean, that's what's worked for me, and that's what's worked for me and Dad. And hopefully you guys found some of that interesting. Um, yeah, I'll just try to just do something a little bit different. Like I said, we're not always going to talk about guns on this radio show, but that's going to be the main focus for sure. And you guys already know that. But I got a bunch more things that I plan on talking about on the radio show in the future. I don't see myself running out of ideas anytime soon. So, um, and I think the way I'm going to do it probably is I'm going to, I may actually have more radio shows than regular shooting videos on the channel. That's very possible. And again, the shooting videos that I'm doing are not reviews. So don't expect to get everything you need to know about the gun from my videos. Really, it's just me shooting the gun and just talking about things that I just think of that have to do with that gun. It's really not an actual review. That would be redundant if I did that. So I want to, because I want to bring something different. I feel like maybe the value of the Hickok 45 and Son channel could be not just that. I just want to get some of my own ideas out there in a more direct way instead of through the Hickok videos. Actually hearing it from the horse's mouth, as they say. It's not just that. If you're a fan of the Hickok videos and you want something a little more, maybe a little different, maybe I can provide that. I don't know, maybe not. But that's part of the idea. And Dad's gonna do some videos and stuff over here too, and it'll evolve just like anything else. It'll evolve. And but yeah, I appreciate you guys listening to the shows, and I got plenty of ideas, and let's see, there was something else. What was something else I was gonna say? What was it? I can't remember. Anyways, I really appreciate you guys listening, and I will talk to you next time.